Hello and welcome to Writing and Publishing a DIY Guide, episode 4. If you haven't seen all the other episodes, go back and check them out. There might be something interesting or something useful for you there. What I want to talk about in this episode is what you actually write on and what software you use, if you use software, and what I use and why it's good things to use. I also specifically want to talk about Grammarly and Pro Writing Aid, which are both tools which you can use to tidy up your manuscript, improve your text a bit, and also perhaps learn something and improve your actual writing style and technique. Now, the first thing is, if you want to handwrite your manuscript on lined paper and send it in as that's probably something which people used to do in the past a lot more. If you're a big name now and you're well established and you've got a very good relationship with your agent or publisher, you can probably still do it. But I think if you're a debut novelist and you're trying to get yourself a deal, most agents are probably going to be a little bit put off by receiving a handwritten, lined paper manuscript in the post. I tend to think, given the volume of manuscripts you're receiving and the time it takes to decipher and read handwriting, I think it's probably not the best approach. If that's what you do, go for it. But for me, I think if you want the best chance of getting yourself a deal, and also if you want to publish on the Kindle or ebooks, you're going to have to transcribe that into some sort of digital format anyway. So for me, it's better just to skip that bit and go straight to digital. What I actually write on, the main thing I use is Google Documents. Now, you might find that you can skip some of these stages if you've got Office 365, but I start out by writing my draft in an online Google document. Why? Firstly, this one here you can access from anywhere. So as long as you have your login credentials, whether you're at work on your lunch break, whether you're at home, at a friend's house, on holiday, you borrow a laptop, wherever you are, if you've got your Google login, you can work on that document. It's also going to be saved on the cloud. So if you lose your laptop, your hard drive blows up, whatever, you've still got that. You're not going to lose it. Even if you lose your entire PC, you're not going to lose 80,000, 90,000 words of manuscript. That said, the way I use Google Documents is I will periodically export a Word document. So I've got a hard copy. That way, if there's ever a problem with Google or you can't access the cloud, you've still got something, you've got a backup copy, but the sort of main working document I keep as the Google Documents. If you haven't got Office, I think most people have, and I can really recommend it because Microsoft Word is the best it is the best standard word processor for many reasons. If you haven't got it and you don't want to pay for it, your next best option is probably OpenOffice. OpenOffice is free and it uses all standard Microsoft .x, .doc, .docx, all those sort of formats, as well as rich text and text files. It's pretty much a less feature-rich, less intuitive to use version of Microsoft Office. I don't like it as much as Office, But if I'm ever on a PC somewhere and I haven't got Office and I need a piece of software I can download and work on a document on, OpenOffice tends to be the best option. So that way I've got a cloud copy and I've got a hard drive copy of my document all times. If you've got Microsoft Office 365, you might think, well, actually, I've got a cloud copy anyway, and that is true. But there's nothing worse than having spent weeks putting together an 80,000 word manuscript, and then because either the cloud goes down, or Google has a problem, or you have a problem, you're losing everything. So make sure you keep the two backups, and this is a good way of doing it. Like you say, do it in Google Documents, periodically export it to a Word document and date those and give them version numbers like 0.1, 1.0, 1.1, depending on how much you've developed it at that time, and then you can tell which is the most recent version, and if you want to go back to an early version, you can see as well. In terms of using Grammarly and Pro Writing Aid, the Grammarly plugin for Google Documents is quite useful. For Grammarly, it's mainly useful for grammar, spelling, that sort of thing. I don't find it's as good for actually analysing the style and implementing those kind of changes. It is well worth adding it to your Google Documents if you've got a Grammarly account, so you can write out in Google Documents, and then live Grammarly will be suggesting changes and improvements, and it'll hopefully help you to get together a decent first draft. Now, Pro Writing Aid is something I do like to use, and I think the good thing about Pro Writing Aid is you can not just use it to fix your document and to make your manuscript better, but you can also use it to learn how to not need to use it by looking at the suggestions it's making, taking them on board, and trying to fix the issues that it's picking up on. So that piece of software is called Pro Writing Aid. And I think there is a free version, but the subscription's not that expensive anyway, and if you do a lot of writing, it is useful. What that will do, and again, when you're using Pro Writing Aid, because it can take a long time to analyse things, particularly if you put a huge chunk of text into it, for Pro Writing Aid, I would do a chapter at a time. You know, if you try and do a page at a time, it's not going to have enough to work with. So just put in one chapter at a time. And what that will pick up on is, yes, your spelling and grammar, but that should have already been sorted by then. But also things like repetition, whether you use too many sentence openings in a row. It'll also look at things like your length of sentences. So what you find when you're writing fiction, for example, it reads better if you have a variety of sentence lengths. You want to mix short sentences and long sentences, and it keeps it more interesting then, and you can make sentences more impactful, you can make them short. You tend to find that it works best when you use a mixture. So when you look at your graph of sentence lengths, you want something that looks like something that's got a good variety. What you don't want is loads of long sentences that are 15 words long plus in a row, or loads of 3-word, 4-word sentences one after another. You want to mix it up a bit, and that's something that it can pick out. And again, you'll by looking at your text with ProWriting Aid and looking at your sentence length, you can get a feel for how to actually write in a rhythm a varied sentence length. If there's also words or phrases that you tend to use too much, this can pick that up as well, and you can look at that and say, okay, I always say that in that situation, I need to vary that. I need to come up with a few different ideas and start mixing them up and try and come up with something new. It'll also pick up on known cliches, and I think with cliches, sometimes what you don't want is a manuscript that's absolutely full and riddled with known cliches. However, particularly if you've got characters in there in dialogue, people do talk in cliches, so occasionally, sometimes, it's probably acceptable to put a cliche or two within dialogue if it makes sense for the character. If it's a fictional world, then it's a lot of fun to take what is a known cliche to us and subvert it by applying something about that particular world which you've created and you're writing in, so that people are kind of familiar with it, but it's also new and interesting at the same time. And that's basically my writing process. I start in Google Documents, get my manuscript completed more or less in that, occasionally exporting to Word so that I've got a backup in case there's an issue with the cloud. Very rare, but it can happen. Once I've got the completed document and I've finished it all and I've got a final one I've exported to Word, I'll then go through chapter by chapter, putting it into ProWriting Aid, and I'll hopefully improve the style, get rid of some glue words and make it read better. And again, that is very good for that. Once I've been through and I've put all those chapters back into a Word document, I'll do a final spelling and grammar check in Word, and that is the final document which I will upload. When I'm saving hard copies, again, I like to keep a version number, and it's a good idea because it helps you keep track of where you are with things. So dating them is a good idea, because sometimes when you're moving files around, it's unusual, but you can mess up the actual dated and modified dates. So if you actually name them something like the name hyphen date, for example, 06/06/2022 hyphen 1-0 for version 1.0 ... and then the next day when you write the next version, you can call that name dot 07/06/2022 hyphen 1-1 ... .docx, whatever. And that way you can see what it's called, what project it is, what date you actually created that version, and what version you're calling. If it's a minor change, you might go for 1-0. If you think, oh, I've done a lot, that's a vastly different document, I've added 3 chapters, you might say, you know what, we'll call that 2-0. And that's basically the process. There is another piece of software which a lot of people like, and I'm trying to recall the name of it. It's something like Scribbly, and it's very good if you're more of a methodical writer and you've planned out what you're going to write. It's very easy to write scenes and move them around and mess with bits of your project and then put it all together. I don't use it. I've tried it and I found that for the way I write, it wasn't that useful. But I know a lot of people really like it. I will find out exactly what it's called. Or is it Scribbly? I'll find out exactly what it's called, and I'll put a link in the description to it. It's definitely worth looking at, but it's not for everyone, and it is quite expensive. The subscription is. ProWriting Aid is cheap. Grammarly, and you can use it free as well. It's a bit limited. Grammarly there's a free version, and the subscription's pretty cheap. If you can't get Microsoft Office, OpenOffice is a good second bet, but I would do the bulk in Google Documents, or if not that, another cloud-based platform, so you've already got that backup. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe.